The Nothing Phone 2 was just announced. I've been using mine for a little bit over a week. It has a lot of new features and upgrades compared to the first one, and it's a lot faster than the first one. Now, there are a few more noticeable changes to Nothing Phone 2. The glyph lights on the back have been separated into several segments now compared to before, and the back of the device has this pillowed glass back now. The original Nothing Phone 1 had a completely flat glass back. This has a more rounded and curved texture to it. It's just like puffs out. And also the USB-C charging cable that came in the box. It's their see-through design aesthetic on the two heads of the USB-C cable. So at first glance, it doesn't seem all that different from Nothing Phone 1, but a lot of stuff has changed, and even the direction of the company has shifted. So if you look at the back of this device, Nothing Phone 2 has a familiar design aesthetic to Phone 1. It's got that see-through back panel, but because the back is more puffed out this year, it feels quite different in your hand. Like it's just a weird curve to it. And I say weird because usually when you have a flat edged device like this, you get a flat back. Normally, a puffed out or curved out back panel is reserved for devices with rounded edges, but this is a flat edged device with a round back. And it just feels different in your hand compared to basically any other flat edged phone. Now, underneath that glass back, you can see the heavily stylized internals. It's a very nice looking phone. The switch up here doesn't do anything. So like last year, I popped it open just to see if this switch would do anything because they make this thing look like it should do something, right? It's this physical switch looking object right in front of your face, like it should be like a turbo button for this phone or something, but it does nothing. The internal pieces are once again textured. The wireless charging coils and the ribbon cables are all very neat and tidy. It's held together with screws and adhesives. Now on Phone 1, my unit held up very well over the past year. I use it because I think it's a nice looking phone. I really think that there's no other phone that looks quite like it. There are some skins from Dbrand. Last year they had the Something skin, and this year they have their new Something Dark skin. But you can put these on basically any phone. They just don't light up. If you want that, you got to get the real deal. So Nothing Phone 2 runs their new glyph lighting system. These lights have the same kind of overall shape as before, but they've separated the glyph pattern into more sections. So on the original Nothing Phone 1, they had 4 basic light zones and then a 5th light zone that had 8 individually controllable lights, and you could use that strip of lights as a charging indicator. On Nothing Phone 2, there are more of those basic light zones, and you still have that vertical strip with the 8 individual LEDs, but now there's a new segment with 16 individually controllable LEDs. And this strip of lights can be used as a visual indicator for timers, like it can start ticking down for a specific time that you set, or it can be used as an indicator for time-based events in apps like a pickup or a delivery. It already works with Uber, but more developers can get on board, and it can also work as a volume indicator. You can just tap the volume button and it goes up and down. But the one thing I've always wanted on Phone 1 was a light that would be permanently activated if I had some unread notification, like an email or something. And they finally have it. They call it their Essential glyph, and it's this one up here in the top right. And this light can be assigned to light up if there's a notification from a particular app or even a specific contact. I find that really useful. And there's also this new composer feature. I think it's kind of neat. Like you can make your own ringtones or notifications on a sequencer. I think it could be cool if there were more instruments or maybe samples, but it's kind of mid the way that it is. All right, the screen's been upgraded. This is now an LTPO panel. It goes up to 120 Hertz, but it can downclock down to 1 Hertz for energy savings. This is a bigger screen. It's now 6.7 inches. It's also 1,000 nits outdoors, 1,600 nits for HDR. It's got thinner bezels than before. It's a really nice looking screen. But because the screen's a little bit bigger, even with the thinner bezels, it's actually a slightly larger device this year than it was last year. The extra size isn't really noticeable in your hands though. There's a bunch of other subtle design changes. So the recording light is a little bit different shaped on the Nothing Phone 2, and the USB-C port used to be centered on the frame, but now because of that pillowed out glass back, it's a thicker device and they've centered it to the whole device now instead of just the frame. And also the battery. The Nothing Phone 2 has a slightly larger battery than the Nothing Phone 1 did. Now I wish I could talk more about my experience on this device in terms of battery life, but I can't. They say that has to come to a later date. But just simple math, slightly larger battery, way more energy efficient chip, similar screen size with LTPO, you can imagine that this would probably have better battery life than Nothing Phone 1. Okay, things that haven't changed. So the fingerprint sensor is still fairly low. It's always a weird grip for me to scan in. The haptics feel really similar between this year's phone and last year's. Same with the speakers, they sound really similar. And in terms of software, this is now running Nothing OS 2, and it's by and large a very clean version of Android. They have some new features, like you can hide app labels, and you can run monochrome app icons. This isn't stuff that couldn't be done with a launcher or an icon pack before, but it is nice that it's baked into the operating system. They also have some new widgets that I think are kind of neat because they take advantage of the Nothing design language and the fonts. Now, some of these widgets are superfluous, like the clock app. I've never found a clock app particularly useful, but their weather widget and the weather app are really cool. I think they nailed the design on those things. Now, the camera system is a feature that I can't go in depth at this point, but I will say this. It's running a better sensor, the IMX 890, and a much better chip this year, right? It's the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, and because of that, you have the capability to just process more aggressively. And there's some stuff that's on Twitter if you want to see what these pictures look like so far. But the front-facing camera, this is different. So this is now running a 32 megapixel camera compared to the 16 megapixels of before. Now, over the past week that I've been using this, I did not know its price. I was using the phone, I thought, okay, this is a way smoother experience than it was before, and I like the new features, I like the new glyph capabilities. But this morning, I was told the price. And here's the thing, when Nothing Phone 1 launched, it came out at, I think, 470 euros out in Europe. And then now, Nothing Phone 2, it's a lot more expensive. And when I first saw that chart, my knee-jerk reaction, that first thing I thought was like, oh shit, here we go again. It just felt like OnePlus all over again, where they introduced this product with good pricing and really cool features, and like everyone loves it, and they just pull that rug out, and you're right. And I was like, no, please, not again. Now, I had a moment to think about this just before I shot this video, and I realized, okay, the reason why I had such a expectation of a lower price point was because of the first one, right? Nothing Phone 1 had a mid-tier SoC, and it was like a mid-tier price point. This product, it's a much higher tier SoC, and it inherently jacks up the price of these products, and it has a US launch this year, so they're supporting more bands than the Nothing Phone 1. I would say that it's not an expensive phone. It's not cheap at any means, but it's where I feel like it has to be priced in order for this product to exist in the current landscape of phones. It is, however, competing with some of the best devices out there once you're in this price bracket, right? It doesn't have the best SoC. It doesn't have the best camera system. It's just leaning really aggressively on its unique design aesthetic and the glyph lights, which is cool and all, but it's just such a big departure from the original Nothing Phone, right? When Nothing Phone 1 launched, they were all about how the specs don't really matter too much. You want to focus on a good user experience and you have a good price point. But now this is like, it's expensive stuff. I don't know. I understand the whole concept of like, you can't grow a brand without appealing to the smartphone enthusiasts, right? You have to do something like this, but it's just different. It's just different from what I think a lot of people would have expected from this brand even just a year ago. Okay, that's the Nothing Phone 2.